I had the idea to do another diorama with the Todd McFarlane figures, but I needed something of my own. So I decided to build a pink horror with some special features here on the Level 9 laboratory. With the sketch complete and fully colored, I decide to start with the armature. Sadly, this guy has way too many arms for his own good, and it got a little frustrating trying to pin them all together. I used a small wire to wrap around all of the torso parts that connect all the arms together. This made it pretty solid, and I felt confident to move on to the tinfoil phase. Tinfoil is mainly used just to bulk out the model, fill in a bunch of spots that I don't want to use extra clay on. It also lightens the model a bit, as I had a bit of a problem with only having one armature wire for the right leg go into my stand. The weight of this forward-leaning model put too much pressure on the ankle part, and it all kind of fell forward while it was baking in the oven. With it sufficiently chromed out, it's time to put a little bit of clay on. I start with a very thin layer to just cover the model head to toe. I also wanted to start with the legs to make sure that it was strong enough that it would hold everything else. Also, that one armature wire going into a base made it so the model wiggles around a little bit too much. So I do apologize for the camera, as it is constantly jiggling just a little bit. With the first layer of clay on, I can start to imagine what this is actually going to look like once it's finished, and I'm already quite happy with where my mind thinks it can take this. Again, I started with the leg and the foot to try to add more stabilization to the model, because it was wiggling around just a bit too much. Now, with a pink horror, you can really do whatever you want for legs and arms. So I decided with this foot, I would go with more of a raptor dinosaur style of foot. And as everyone knows, pink horrors are sufficiently thick, so we need to bulk out the hip area and around the backside. The other leg also needed more clay and more thickening around the rump area. Using the butt end of one of my tools, I just roll it over the edge where two pieces of clay meet. Doing this consistently will cause a really good blend in between a freshly laid piece and a piece that's been sitting on there and might be a little bit colder than the one you've just warmed up in your hands. The armature wire was a bit too big in this area, and I wanted the foot to sort of show that it was launching. Needed to curl underneath the body of the pink horror. So I had to cut a piece off and kind of reimagine what this was going to look like. And to show off that this creature has no respect for symmetry at all, I decided to make this hand more of a monkey's paw with an extra thumb to really show off that this thing is constantly changing its size, its shape, its digits, and tentacles are just going to be popping out everywhere in the end. Can't wait for you guys to see the final project. Whenever I do a model that has something that's even remotely close to a human's physique, I always use my own body as a reference. So I've curled my hand over multiple times, trying to find the right position to copy. Again, it's always a good idea to reference the human body if you're doing anything that involves a human-like shape. These arms I just took as a reference from some bodybuilder online. This was one of the key details of the model that I really wanted to nail. It was this open gap in between the arm where the bicep should be, leading to the wrist. The reason why I did this is because I'm really looking forward to a future project that is going to involve some Todd McFarlane Warhammer models and this creation right here. To attach the hand to the wrist, I cut a large beveled cut. If it was just flat, it wouldn't adhere as well, as the two surface areas would not be very big. I'm just using the silicone tip of one of my tools here to just brush the two pieces together. Though Pink Horror is naturally not that physically capable in close combat, I did want to show off that this guy was wiry and still packed with muscle. So I laid on these big, hulking shoulder muscles and quite strong looking arms. I've always seen in other illustrations of Pink Horrors, and lots of times on the model, they have the two fingers up on the outside of the hand. So I don't know if that's some type of way that they cast magic spells or not. I knew I had to put it on the model as it's part of a very iconic piece of the Pink Horror. Pink Horror is a very strange build. He's essentially just a gigantic head and mouth with legs coming out of the lower jaw area. So getting the jaw and the head proportioned properly was really important to make this model look authentic. Of course, any Pink Horror needs a huge set of gnarled teeth. I hid these teeth behind a big bottom lip. But I didn't want to do the same on the top, as I thought the two sets of lips would make it look a little bit too human. So I started off with just teeth coming out of the face, almost as if the skull was part of the skin. After figuring out where I wanted the eyes, I rolled out some little tubes of clay and wrapped them around to make eye sockets and eyelids. Again, using the butt end of my tool here just to blend everything together. One thing I wanted to do was have these sunken in eyes, make it look like it does not see the world in any natural way. I spent a lot of time on the eyes and the face of this monster. I knew that most of it is just going to be writhing pink tentacles, and that the eyes and the face of this guy, it's really going to be the attention grabber for this model. So I really wanted to do a good job rounding out the eyes, deepening the sockets, and making this thing look like a real monster. By building the upper lip and the eye structure off the model, it made it so much more convenient, as this guy was just too big to kind of attach and grow things off of it as it went. So building it in my hands was so much more convenient than just building it straight off the face of the model. And after that, I kind of just lay it on top like a Halloween mask. I had spent enough time rolling out little tentacles, so I called on some energy from the warp to create a couple for me. Thanks, Zeech. Now it was on to the task of attaching all of the tentacles. I didn't have any really rhyme or reason for where I was putting any of these tentacles. It didn't really matter anyways. Pink horrors just kind of have them coming out of everywhere. As long as it worked with the dynamic flow and the forward movement of the model, I was happy with pretty much placing them anywhere. And then it was time to bake the model. Now, I had a huge complication and a big problem when I baked this model. The forward lean and the weight on the front and the top of this model caused it to collapse forward, damaging the knee, breaking the hand. I lost a couple tentacles and that back ankle blew out. I had to reinforce this later with more clay. I wrapped a bunch more armature wire around it to make sure that it would stay in its place. This is something I learned. I will not make this mistake again. I'm still really new to using polymer clay and armature wire, and this was a big mistake. And I'm thankful that it didn't fully ruin the model as it absolutely could have if it took a big fall and everything just turned to mush. What once was pink, now is blue. What once was 1, now is 2. This is the old rhyme that goes with these pink and blue horrors. I love the idea of having a little blue horror kind of creeping out of the mouth, and I knew I had to do it. It was frustrating to try to get the model in there after building the mouth. It was probably a mistake. I maybe could have sequenced that a little bit better to get to relieve a bit of frustration on my end, but I love the way it turned out. I used a couple different colors of paint. I used a pink that I mixed with a bit of purple. I then mixed a red with a bit of purple and a bit of white to make a lighter pink. I tried to play around with a bunch of different flesh tones. I also used a bit of a purple and a bit of a blue to make the undertones and kind of give it a weird shadowed angle from one side. I really like the way the paint job turned out on this particular model. And now on to some of the more detailed parts of the model. I really like the thought of yellow glowing eyes to really draw attention to the face of this pink horror, and I wanted dark fingernails and dark teeth to contrast all the bright colors coming off of this model. And now it's on to our final creation. I've had a few new subscribers lately, and it's giving me new energy to try new projects. I really appreciate you guys. I love hearing what you think in the comments. Please let me know. And as always, like, subscribe, and hit the bell. I'm putting out new content as soon as I can. Thank you guys so much for sticking around. Have a good one.